Hey guys, Percolator. Today we're going to continue our series of building the home lab. Today we're going to be setting up our VMs and then backing them up to our TrueNAS server. The first step that we need to do is upload the image to our Proxmox server. In order to do this, you need to go to the node that you're going to be uploading it to and find what storage you would like to upload to. In our case, we're going to be loading local, but there could be other places you could upload it if you have a place to upload ISOs on your Proxmox server. In our case, we're going to be using local since we have plenty of storage on our local disk. Then we're going to go up to upload, select the file. In our case, it's going to be Ubuntu 22.04. Hit open. And in here, you can also select a hashing algorithm if you need to do that. This is for security purposes to make sure, the image that you're uploading is the image that it says it is. If you don't need to do this, you can skip it. And you can also name the file here if you need to. In our case, we're just going to leave it 22.04, the full name, and then we're going to hit upload. This could take a few seconds or a few minutes, depending on how fast of a connection you have to your Proxmox server. Once that is finished, you'll get a message saying task OK, finished file import successfully. Once you have this, you can safely exit this and the file should be uploaded to the server. Next, we're going to be trying to find the specs of the systems. That way we can allocate the proper amount of cores and RAM to the machine that we can afford. In order to do this, we're going to go to the tab that says the name of our node, in our case Megatron. Click Megatron, and we're going to be looking at CPU usage and RAM usage. The RAM usage says 4 gigs are being used out of 31 gigs, so it means we have a total of 31 gigs of RAM, and we have 6 CPU cores, as we can see here. This is useful information, and you can find it in here if you don't know already. If you recently bought your hardware or know quite a bit about your hardware, you can probably already know this information, but if you don't, this is a good place to find it. In order to create a VM in Proxmox, we're going to go up to the button that says Create VM in the top right corner. After pressing this, you'll get a pop-up saying Create Virtual Machine. We're going to be changing the VM ID to 200. This is an arbitrary VM ID, and you can use these VM IDs to create some kind of a scheme in order to help you label and keep track of your VMs. I'm going to be using 200. It can be anything you would like set. You can leave it at 100 if you would like. It's all up to you. For the name, we're going to keep it simple. We're just going to be calling this Docker. You can name this also whatever you want. Just give it some kind of memorable name for whatever you're doing with it. Then press next. Then we'll be able to select the ISO image. The ISO image we just uploaded is Ubuntu 22.04. If you have more, there'll be a list in here saying different ISOs and different images that you have available. After this, we press next, and it'll take us to system. System shows our firmware, BIOS, machine, graphics card, SCSI controller, and a couple of other options. In here, we're going to be checking the box that says QEMU agent. This is something we're going to need later whenever we install the QEMU guest agent. The BIOS can also be changed to OVMF if you need to for PCIe pass-through, or at least that's what I believe most people use OVMIF for. But for what we're going to be doing today, we're just going to be keeping it as the default. After pressing next, you'll be presented with the disk screen. This is where we'll configure the VM storage. Under the storage box, we're going to select paper 0. This is wherever you would like to store your VM's hard drive. In our case, it's paper 0. Yours may be named something else, depending on whichever you named your local storage. You may also use local storage if you're just storing it on your boot drive. Under disk size, we're going to be setting this to 100. You can get away with less. 32 should be fine. 50 would be more recommended. 100 is what I'm going to be using because I'd like room to expand in the future. Press next and you'll be presented with the CPU screen. On the CPU screen, I'm going to be setting this to 4 cores. However, you can probably get away with 2. That's what I was running on this machine beforehand. However, I would like for it to be a little bit more snappy while doing a tutorial just to speed things up for you guys. Under type, for certain operating systems, you do need to set this to host. And there's a couple of other ones that are useful to set this to for certain applications. But you don't really want to play with this unless you know what you're doing or unless you have a operating system that needs a specific type. Leaving on the default should work for most situations. After pressing next, you'll be presented with the memory screen. On the memory screen, for what we're going to be doing, we're going to be setting this to 6144. This is 6 gigs of memory. You can set this to more or a little bit less. If you want to set it to 4, you can set it to 4. All you need to do is multiply 124 by whatever number, and it will give you that many gigs of RAM in megabytes. From here, we press next, and we're presented with the networking screen. The network screen, we're going to be leaving all of this default, and you can do some pretty complicated things in here, but for what we're going to be doing, the basic setup will be working. Will do us just fine. You can also tag VLANs if you need to do that in here. After pressing next, you'll be on the confirmation screen. On the confirmation screen, you can also hit select, or you can select the button that says start after creation. This will automatically start your VM as soon as it is done being created. But in this case, I'm not going to be checking that, just so I can show you where the VM pops up and what it looks like after it's created. Press finish and look at the left side of your screen. Over here under local network and where your storage is, you'll see a pop-up that says the name of your machine. Once it's popped up, it should be ready to go. And you can press start in order to launch your VM. Now I'm going to show you how to get to your console on your VM. If you're selected in this menu, you would like to click on your VM, go over to the middle column here where it says console, click console, and this should say guest not running if your guest isn't running, or should show an image of what is showed on your guest machine. In our case, it's not running, so we're going to go ahead and change that by hitting the Start Now button. Once the VM is started, you'll be booted with the splash screen, and then you'll be booting into the VM. So we're going to go ahead and install Ubuntu Server. In order to do this, we're going to press Enter on Try or Install Ubuntu Server. Once that is done, it could take a few seconds in order for Ubuntu Server to load. Now that Ubuntu Server has booted, we're going to go ahead and start installing Ubuntu. First, we're going to select our language, which in my case is going to be English. And on this screen, we're going to go ahead and select Update to the new installer. You don't have to do this, it's kind of up to you, but in my case, I would prefer to go ahead and update to the new installer. After just a minute, you'll be presented with your keyboard configuration. All of this looks good for what I need. If you need to change your layout or your variant, both of those are up there. And in order to navigate, you can't really use your mouse. However, you can use your arrow keys, tab, and enter. So I'm going to tab down to done, press enter, and that will be fine. This is going to pick what type of installation you would like: Ubuntu Server, Ubuntu Server Minimalized, or search for third-party drivers. In my case, we're just going to be selecting Ubuntu Server and pressing done. It's already pre-selected, so just press done. The next screen that you'll be presented with is your network screen. On this screen, you can configure your network. In my case, we're going to be changing this from a DHCP address to a static address by selecting ENS18. This may be named differently for you. After selecting it, go to Edit IPv4, select it, and then select Manual. Once selected Manual, go down to Subnet, type in the subnet that you would like to set this to. In my case, this will be 192.168.0.0/24. Then the address, in my case, I want to set this to 192.168.0.30. The gateway will be 192.168.0.1. And the name server, we're going to just be setting this to Google's DNS 8.8.8.8. And then we're going to be pressing save. Once this is done, we can go down to done, and it'll take us to the next screen. On this screen, you can configure proxy if you need to. In my case, I do not need to. However, if you do, this is where you would set it. After that, we get the configure Ubuntu archive mirrors. Now, this is where you'll get your mirrors, and this is fine. Once this has all of your stuff and it says reading package list, you should be fine to go ahead and press done. This may take a few minutes in order to get done, but yeah. Once you press done, you'll be presented with the storage configuration. And here we're just going to press done because we're doing this on a VM and we want it to be able to use the whole disk. You can set this up in other ways if you need to. After that, you get the storage configuration. This is just confirming that everything is good, and it gives you an overview of everything that you need to know as far as the storage and everything. So in our case, we're just going to go ahead and press done. We're going to go down to confirm destruction. And in this case, since it's just a VM and it's on a drive that doesn't really exist, we really don't care since it can't really hurt anything in our case. So we're just going to press continue. Now we're presented with the profile setup. This is where you'll set up your profile account. So in our case, we're going to be setting this to Percolator. You can set this to whatever you would like for your name and the name of the server. The name of the server, since we go with everything's Transformers, will be Thundercracker. After that, we'll be selecting my username, which is also going to be Percolator, and we're going to be choosing a password. Make sure you remember this password because you're going to need to use this in order to execute sudo commands and to log in later. This offers you to set up or to upgrade to Ubuntu Pro. I do believe this costs money, so in my case, I'm not going to be doing that. We're just going to go to continue. This offers, if you would like to set up SSH, this is good if you need to go ahead and set up SSH. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and select it and go down to done because it's a lot easier to use that for the tutorial and easier to see than to use this console for the entire tutorial. After that, we'll be given the featured server snaps. These are some server snaps in which you can go ahead and install that are already pre-configured by Canonical. I don't necessarily like these, and you can set up Docker in this way, but I definitely prefer just to grab the PPA from Docker in order to set that up. So we're just going to go ahead and go down to done without selecting anything and move on. After that, you'll be configured with installing kernel. This is where the actual Ubuntu installation is going to happen. After a little while, you'll be presented with a screen where it's boot. Once we're there, I'll let you know what we're going to be doing. Now that we've been presented with the reboot screen, we can go ahead and select reboot. After selecting reboot, you'll be presented with this failed error. Now, in order to make this go away, we're going to go ahead and go to hardware. Once in hardware, we're going to select the item that says CD-DVD drive IDE2. Once this is selected, we can go ahead and press remove and press yes. This will prevent us from rebooting back into the boot for Ubuntu. After that's done, we just press enter, and we should be rebooting Proxmox back into Ubuntu. Once the reboot is finished, you'll be presented with some of your keys. If you need these, you can get them in this way, but there's better ways to get these than to copy and paste them from here. Now I'm going to be switching over to SSH. This should be easier to see for you. That's why I'm switching over. And in order to SSH in this machine, we're just going to do SSH, the name of the user, at the IP address of the server. After pressing enter, you'll be asked if you would like about the fingerprint. In our case, we're going to be typing yes. After that, we're going to be presented to present the password for the user. We're going to present it with the password. After doing that, we'll get the login prompt telling us all the information that we need to know about our Ubuntu install, such as the system load, the usage of -root, the IP address for the system, the swap usage, and all of these other things. The first thing that we would like to do with our server is we would like to go ahead and update it. Now, during the installation process, it should have said something like go ahead and update or updating or something like that. But in my experience, that doesn't really apply all the updates. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and do sudo apt install and sudo apt dist upgrade. Once you've typed out this, we're going to press enter the root password, or the sudo password, excuse me. Press enter. And once this pops up, it'll ask if you would like to install these packages above. In our case, we're just going to press enter, and it should go ahead and get and download and install all of these updates in which we need for the system. After the update is run, you will be prompted with a screen like this. It says daemon, or may be prompted with a screen like this saying daemon's using outdated libraries. And it's just asking you which ones you would like to reload. Generally, I just leave whatever's checked, and whatever's non-checked, not checked. And then go down to OK by pressing tab and pressing enter to say OK. Once that's done, the update will go ahead and finish, and we're going to be ready to move on to the next step. The last thing that we're going to be doing is setting up our backups. In order to do this, we're going to go ahead and head over to TrueNAS. We're going to head down to datasets. We're going to select tank 0 or whatever you named your original dataset underneath your storage. And we're going to go over here and press add dataset. Once we've done this, we're going to go ahead and give it a name. We're going to be naming it Proxmox backup, because I believe that's pretty descriptive of what it's going to be doing. Once we have that, we're going to go down here and press save. After we've pressed save, we can look at the permissions and all of that over here and make sure that it is in fact here. After this, we can just go over here to shares, select Unix NFS shares, go ahead and press add. So go ahead and make the little drop down box by clicking these little arrows and select the path that we just created. So in our case, it'll be -mmt-tank /proxmox backup. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and head down here to networks and hosts. If you would like everything on your network to have it, you can just leave these blank. If you want a specific subnet, you can specifically say 192.168.0.0 and then give it a /24. And then everything within that /24 would have access to it. In my case, we're going to be adding individual hosts. So we're going to do 192.168.0.14. Then we're going to add another one, 192.168.0.15. And then we're going to add the last one, which is 192.168.0.16. After all of these have been set here, we can go down here to advanced options. This is very important. Make sure you go to map root user, select root, map root group, and select will. After we've done this, we can go to save and press save, and it'll ask us if we'd like to enable a service. Here, you can go ahead and press enable service. However, I'm going to have an error. This error, I am not 100% sure where it's coming from, but I will show it on screen as soon as it pops up. Here it is. And I'm not exactly sure what the issue is. However, there is a pretty simple workaround that, you know, after it is up, it doesn't seem to have any issues. So we're going to go ahead and press close. We're going to go ahead and exit this, and you'll see it says stopped. If we go over here to the 3 dots and click turn on service, it'll say running, which means it is successfully up. Now the NFS share is up, and that error pretty much goes away. From here, we can head over to our Proxmox nodes, go to data center, go to storage, click add, and we're going to go ahead and select NFS. For the ID, we're just going to be calling this something simple. Let's go with TrueNAS. And once we have that, we can go ahead and put the IP address, so 192.168.0.11. Then we can click this. If you click this and it just gives you a little line, give it a second, click off of it and click back, and sometimes it'll populate. Sometimes it takes a second to populate this field. Once you've selected the export, you can go down here and select VZ dump backup file. This is the backup files that Proxmox makes, and these are the things that we're going to want to back up. You can also put your disk images, ISOs, container templates, containers, and snippets on here. However, I'm only using one good connection, so disk images are a bit slow. ISO images, I may make my own another NFS share in order to do that, and for this one, I just want it to be our backups. The other 2 fields on the right side are enable and nodes. Enable enables the share, and nodes says what share has access to this share. So for instance, if we wanted Soundwave and Megatron, but we didn't want Ravager to be able to back up to it, we could select both of those. In our case, we're gonna go ahead and press the X button because we want all and no restrictions. There's also another tab, backup retention. Backup retention says how long we can keep a backup for. So if we want to uncheck this box, it'll give us these options. Say, if we want to keep the latest 10 backups, we can just put 10 here and press add. You can also edit this later, but this will keep the latest 10 backups. In our case, we don't really want to do this. We're going to go ahead and click the checkbox, and we're going to keep all backups. Down here, we also have maximum protected. This is how many protected backups you can have. -1 will set it to unlimited, as the tooltip says, and otherwise you have 5 as default. After this, we can go back to the general tab, or we can stay on backup retention tab and press add. This will not currently work for me because I'm having to refilm this, and I already have the share added here. This is the share in which we added. Now that TrueNAS has been added, we're going to go ahead and set up a backup and test out to make sure it's working. So in order to do this, we're going to head over to Docker, and under console, I am already logged in, and I have made a file called this is a test file. If we ls, you can see it there. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to create a snapshot with this file, then come back in here and delete it. Once that's deleted, we're going to restore the file by restoring the snapshot. So let's go ahead and do that. How we'll do that is we need to go ahead and make the backup first. So we head over to the backup tab. Once here, we go ahead and click backup now, and we're going to be just doing a snapshot. And down here in notes, you can set some other variables. They're down here, and I believe there are a couple of others, but I'm not 100% confident on that. These are generally good enough for what I use them for. So from here, all we do is press backup, and you'll get a pop-up box. This may take a few minutes in order to back up. Once that is finished, you can scroll down and it'll say task OK. This means that the snapshot has been taken, and we can go ahead and exit this. As you can see, here's the snapshot. Now, in order to make sure that this actually restores, we're going to go ahead and head over to Docker and head to the console. Inside of console, we're going to go ahead and do remove this test file. After that, we can ls, and as you can see, that test file is not there. From here, we need to shut down this so that we can restore. In order to do this, if we go up here and press shut down and we press yes, as you can see, nothing happens. And down here in the log, you'll see a loading icon, and it'll do that forever. The reason being is because we do not have the guest utils installed on this VM. The 2 ways we can fix this is to go ahead and install the guest utils, which we'll be doing in a later video, or we can shut the system down manually. So we're just going to go ahead and shut this VM down. And in order to do that, all we need to do is type shutdown, -h now. After pressing enter, the machine will go ahead and shut down. Once it's shut down, we can go ahead and head back over to backups, select the backup, and press restore. From here, we can select what storage we'd like to restore to. And we're going to select paper 0 in our case. We can limit the bandwidth if we need to. We can set unique IDs, say for instance a unique MAC address, and we can hit restore after it's been restored. Start after it's been restored, excuse me. We can also change the name of it, set the memory, set the sockets, set the cores. All of this is just override settings, but for what we're doing, we're just going to check the start after restore button. Now we're going to go ahead and hit restore and press yes. The restore process may take a few minutes. It kind of depends on how much data you need to restore or how large the VM is. Once that is finished, you'll get another task OK. And we can go ahead and exit this window and head over to Docker. When here, we can go to console and it's still booting, but once it's finished, we can go ahead and log in. Once we're logged in, we can go ahead and do an ls. And as we can see, this test file is now back because we have restored from the backup. Now that we've configured Proxmox and TrueNAS, we have a good place to start our home lab. From here, you can experiment on your own. Remember that this is a lab and not production, so keep important files somewhere else and somewhere safe. In the next video, we'll be continuing with this lab. I will be installing Docker and Portainer onto our VM. Then we're going to be setting up Pi-hole, as it's a great first project in your home lab. Any feedback is appreciated. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what I'm doing wrong, and let me know what I'm doing right. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.